Have you ever noticed how quickly people turn on a woman they claim they once admired? Not when she commits a crime, not when she does something wrong, not when she harms someone, but when she herself is harmed and consequently suffers. Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you. If you're new, please like and subscribe and follow along. So I keep forgetting to introduce myself and I just can't be asked. It's long, but it ruins the flow. Anyway, you don't care. The Wizard Liz built one of the largest self-development platforms on YouTube. For years, millions of people looked to her for advice on self-confidence, self-worth, boundaries, and personal growth. She was beautiful, consistent, disciplined, confident, and so to many people she seemed untouchable. But recently Liz has found herself at the centre of public controversy, as well as an ongoing custody dispute and intense online scrutiny. And almost overnight her suffering and her hardship became evidence. Evidence that she was a fraud. Evidence that everything she taught was fake. Evidence that she had never deserved her success in the first place. But that reaction raises a bigger question in my mind. Why do people treat a successful woman's pain and hardship like their thoughts, feelings, and negative opinions and perceptions about her were true all along? Because if pain, hardship, and suffering takes away from wisdom, then nobody is wise. And if going through suffering and hardship makes somebody a fraud, then eventually every human being becomes one. Because suffering is inherent to being a human being, to being on this planet. Life comes with ups and downs. Of course, there are different levels of suffering and different levels of hardship, but pain is pain. Doesn't matter how successful you are, you will feel pain. The Wizard Liz didn't just become successful, she became a symbol. To millions of people, she represented confidence, self-worth, discipline, and high standards. Her content wasn't simply advice. For many viewers, it was proof that transformation was possible, that you could become more confident, more secure within yourself, more selective about who and what you allowed into your life.
You might be wondering why I look like a detective. Well, it's because I'm trying to figure out why you haven't realized your worth yet, okay? Why you are constantly underselling yourself to everyone and everything.
And that is part of why her audience grew so quickly. People weren't just watching Liz, they were watching a version of themselves that they hoped they would become. But symbols come with a problem. The more people that identify with them and look up to them, the less room they have to be human. Because once someone becomes a symbol, people often stop responding to that actual content and start responding to what they represent to them. And when that happens, admiration can become expectation. Expectation can become entitlement, and entitlement can very quickly become resentment. And that became especially visible when Liz's public relationship began to unravel. She kind of always had people hating on her, people who just didn't like her messaging or the way that she put out her messaging. But it became visceral once she had her public fallout and break up with her ex-partner.
The reason for the Wizard Liz's downfall is because she didn't know how to avoid falling in love with this story, and so many other girls have this problem too. She fell in love with this story that her and Landon randomly bumped into each other at an airport and fell in love, but the reality of their relationship is that Landon slid into her DMs while he was in a relationship and would get butterflies anytime that she responded to him, which is not something that a faithful man would be doing. And then turns out that he ended up doing the same thing to her by texting another woman while he was in a relationship. People who are just
Hello, good morning. I have a quick question. Where did this idea that women are never to be blamed for anything come from? Because when I was growing up, we were told it takes two to tango. And all of a sudden now on TikTok, it's like if a woman finds herself in a situation with a man, she's not to blame for anything and all the blame has to be on the man. When I blame the wizard Liz for her decisions, I'm not absolving Landon of any blame or any guilt. However, I'm not talking about Landon because Landon did not create TikTok and YouTube profiles where he was giving dating advice to women. Landon showed up in the wizard Liz's life and did whatever he did. However, it took two to tango because she gave him her attention. She gave him her time. She married him legally. She laid down with him and had a baby. And she did a bunch of things to fund his life and to fund his lawsuit against his ex. And just a bunch of bad decisions, okay? And she did them on purpose because she was desperate for the soft life relationship that she was going to show off to y'all, her followers, on social media. And when it backfired, her logical decision was go online with her sister and roast him and roast his mother and make fun of him and call him gay and everything in the book except sitting in silence and reflecting on her decisions and seeing where she went wrong. Yes, I do blame her for that because she's showing you a very bad example of how putting yourself on the back burner just to be chosen by a man never ends well. You guys are giving these men way too much credit for their manipulation tactics. And I'm seeing comments being like, self-love won't save you from getting abused by a man. Yes, it does! What are we talking about? Do y'all even know what self-love is? When you love yourself, when you're tapped in with yourself, your intuition is on point. Meaning the second a man breathes in your face, you're gonna know what his intentions are. You're gonna get that download. Your intuition is gonna go bing, 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 bing. Stay away from this loser man. And you're not gonna give him your time or attention. Yes, self-love does protect you from getting abused by men. What are we talking about? Why are we acting like self-love is just this concept that just floats around in your consciousness and any man who talks to you can override that? They can't override that unless you allow them to. Unless you intentionally look past the red flags, because men are not good at lying. They're not good at hiding their true feelings. They always tell you the truth, especially if they're gonna drink, which I'm sure they probably did together. You can choose to overlook that. And if you overlook that and then you still pursue this man and you still want to be with him just because you don't want to take the L, just because you have a platform of women rooting for you in this relationship, then yes, you are to blame for what happens to you. Unless Landon had a gun pointing to her head the entire duration of this relationship and forced her to carry a child for him and forced her to do a bunch of other things, then we can have a separate conversation. But that's not what happened. Her consent was granted. She liked this man. She loved this man. She laid down and procreated with this man. For what reason? For what reason? She was not qualified to be giving dating advice, but she did it anyway, and the pressure was building up, and she...
What followed wasn't really concern, or, well, it didn't feel like concern or just criticism to me. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't truly or really about a woman navigating a very painful and public breakup and fallout from that breakup. The conversation became, see, her advice doesn't work. See, she was wrong all along. See, she was a fraud. See, she didn't know what she was talking about. And that's where I think the situation and the conversation just starts to irritate my head. Like, going through a tough time doesn't disprove wisdom. In fact, most lessons are rooted in suffering. Heartbreak doesn't invalidate self-worth, and making mistakes doesn't erase every lesson that you've ever learned. Allegedly, this man, I'm not going to say any names, and again, this is all alleged public information, but allegedly, and Liz claims that this man targeted her, basically pretended to be her dream man after watching her for some time and watching the qualities that she said she wanted in a dream man. Found a way into her life, kind of snuggled up, nestled up to her, pretended to love her. Then when she found out he was cheating, by the way, she claims, like, she preaches self-respect. She immediately cut off that relationship, blasted him publicly online, said she would be a single mother, called off the engagement. Still, there was a lot of backlash, even though technically she did the right thing according to her mantra and what she says. She's not putting up with it. This man targeted her and pretended to be someone else. She didn't clock yet, and people are hating her for it and saying that her advice doesn't work, even though she took all the steps and procedures that someone with self-respect who loves themselves and in accordance to the message that she preaches. She didn't lie about it. She didn't try and cover it up. She was very honest and very open about what she was experiencing. If making mistakes took away from every lesson that you've ever learned, then it wouldn't just be the wizard Liz not qualified to teach anything. It would be everyone on earth. We're human. We all make mistakes. So why were so many people so eager to use her suffering against her in the first place? And to understand that, we first have to understand who the wizard Liz is and how she presents. To understand why so many people connected with the wizard Liz, we have to talk about the part of the conversation that gets left out. People talk about Liz as though she simply appeared on YouTube one day, wealthy, rich, and preaching, love yourself, love yourself. But that's not the story that she or her family have told about herself or their upbringing. Her environment was marked by instability, emotional neglect, family conflict, and a deep sense of feeling unsafe, unloved, and unvalued.
Very bad. Okay. Like, I think everyone already knows this, that I was physically abused by my father. And I saw my mother get abused. So it was like a very, very traumatic childhood. And it's funny, like when my father decided to cheat on my mother, that was like the happiest day of me and my siblings. We were like that monsters leaving our house. We were so happy. But it's ironic that when your abuser leaves the house and you finally have that freedom that you always craved, that you start abusing yourself. Because that's when I developed bulimia, and these are all like forms of self-abuse, you know? And when I looked at my siblings and at myself, I saw how we all handled everything differently. Because the issue is not the abuse, it's the aftermath, right? It's how we feel afterwards. Because now we have to realize that we allowed ourselves to get treated like that. And that this went on for so many years. And it's very hurtful to realize that. And then you go from all of that which you've ever known, the abuse, to, okay, what do we do now? So who are we?
The abusive childhood, it's very hard for me to comprehend when someone is emotionally abusing me. So for me, it's almost like you have to actually physically hit me in order for me to understand that what you're doing is wrong. But I just had to take a step back and I had to look at all the actions of the people around me to formulate and to really think like, wait a minute, you're not treating me well. And there have been scientific proven facts where they compare an abused child with a non-abused child where the brain is completely different. For example, what me and Sabrina deal with to this day is when we walk around, because our amygdala is hyper activated, because we always had to live in survival mode. So when we walk around, my eyes are everywhere. I notice everything constantly because I always feel like I have to be on guard because someone might come and attack me.
Paranoia.
It's a paranoid feeling. Your body gets very exhausted from doing this. That's why I don't even like going out in public or being around people, because I constantly feel like I have to watch my environment. And that's something that happens due to the abuse. Now, other effects are unalive people, they do whatever, and when they ask like, oh, what happened to this, they say, I was abused in childhood, all these things. I don't feel like anyone takes this as serious as it really is.
And whether you agree with her advice today or not, it's difficult to separate her message from those experiences. Because when Liz talks about self-respect, she's not speaking from someone who has always had it. When Liz talks about standards, she's not talking about someone who has always known her worth. And when she talks about choosing yourself, although it appears now as though she has always chosen, it hasn't always been that way. In many ways, her content was built on the opposite experience. The reoccurring story throughout all of her videos is that she was once insecure, lonely, and searching for validation outside of herself. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss and / are choosing to look over, because in their eyes, she made it. It's not that she worked hard, it's not that she was persistent and very passionate about her craft, about her talking and speaking life into people. No, she just got lucky and managed to get out of a really bad situation that probably didn't really affect her life if she is this successful. No, the two things correlate. You're not listening to the advice that the girl was giving you, the experiences that she said that she's had, and then the reflection of what her life looks like now. In my opinion, and I'm not a professional, the way that Liz is and her drive, her confidence, her demeanour, her wanting to have the best in life and not stopping until she has that, that is a trauma response from not having enough, from feeling lack, from feeling the pain of lack. A lot of her advice isn't coming from a place of perfection. It's coming from a place of reconstruction, from trying to build on the things that she felt she never had. Safety, confidence, boundaries, self-belief, and a sense of personal value. Because worldviews, especially worldviews as strong as Liz and as passionate as she preaches them, they don't emerge out of thin air. They emerge from experience. And that's probably why so many people connect with the messaging that she put out in the first place, not because she said she was perfect, but because she represented the possibility of change. The idea that self-confidence isn't something that is unattainable or out of reach. It's something you can build. Proof that you can come from a life of dysfunction, pain, and heartache and still build a life that you are proud of. That you can grow up feeling powerless, but eventually reclaim your power, if you choose. Whether you agree with every lesson she's ever taught is a separate conversation, but her story is a very different story from the caricature and projected image that people are arguing against today. I think if we're going to talk about her message, we should evaluate it fairly, and if we're going to evaluate it fairly, we should really look at where that messaging comes from and how she has applied it in her life and how it has changed her life for the better. And sure, there are some cons. The damn internet in your business every 5 minutes, and every step you take that seems to be a misstep, where people are so happy and clapping and hee and hee-haw and at your downfall, when allegedly the man who pretended to love you has trapped you with a baby and then stolen your firstborn child from you, and the people on the internet are talking about how you having to leave your baby behind saved your brand.
Wizard Liz saved her brand by saying that she was giving her baby daddy full custody. Now, I'm not saying that that's the motivating factor for why she did it, but it is absolutely the thing that saved her credibility. She didn't really actually have many other options, and in the current environment that we live in, where women are, sick and tired of men, sick and tired of being the sole providers for their children, sick and tired of men using motherhood against them, this was absolutely a power move. This is turning patriarchy on its head, right?
She's a human being, and I feel like people, because of the symbol and the symbolicness of her, people forget that she's a human being with real feelings, as well as the fact that she is so tough and so strong. People are like, she'll take it, she'll bounce back, she'll be fine. She's a human being. This is her life, not a show. At some point, the conversation about the Wizard Liz stopped being about her content and started being about her life, more specifically her relationship. When the relationship broke down, the public reaction was immediate. Everything about self-worth, having standards, knowing that you are a special person and that you deserve to be valued, and so moving as though you already have that value even if other people cannot see it. That was all a lie. But what's interesting to me is how a situation, a woman being harmed by a man, allegedly, somehow invalidates everything she said about self-respect, how going through emotional pain and suffering takes away all of the advice and all of the knowledge and all of the wisdom you have gained from your life experiences over time. It was almost as if her struggling made her dishonest, even though she was open with everything that she was going through, very open and honest. Because realistically, people aren't just reacting to what happened. They're using what happened to rewrite who she has always been. And that's a pattern that shows up again and again and again online. When someone becomes a symbol, their humanity stops being the main focus. Their life stops being interpreted as something complex, deeply human, and unpredictable, and instead gets flattened into a narrative. And in that narrative, suffering isn't just pain and hardship. It gets weaponized. It becomes confirmation. If they're suffering, they must secretly be this terrible person who secretly doesn't deserve all the success and everything that they worked hard for. Actually, see, they didn't work hard for it, because look, if they had worked hard, they wouldn't be struggling right now. It all becomes confirmation that they were never qualified to speak in the first place or have the good things that they have. But if we applied that standard consistently, nobody would be allowed to teach anything, because everybody eventually experiences failure. Everybody eventually experiences failure. Everybody experiences heartbreak, pain, suffering, and hardship. Like we experience the cold, we see the sun, and we have dark, there is day. Pain is inherent to just being alive. Because without pain, how would we appreciate all the good and all the joy and all the, Without pain, we damage ourselves. If you couldn't feel pain, you'd chew your tongue off.
And Katie's here. My point with that, because you're going to be like, that was really random. My point with that is pain is necessary. With the whole, if you didn't feel pain, you would chew your tongue off. You chew your tongue off, you bleed to death. Pain is necessary. Pain tells you when something is wrong within your body. Pain tells you when something is, emotional pain tells you when something is wrong within your mind. Pain has a function. It's a warning.
And like, I know it sounds really random, but it's like, it's such as life. You're always going to suffer, no matter how rich or how poor you are. Yeah, cool. People's suffering is in different ways. Maybe you're rich and you'll never starve to death, but you may never feel true love or feel truly valued in your life and feel a lack of emotional connection. And although those are two different levels and two different types of suffering, suffering is suffering. All the same. Nobody is immune to suffering. Why we try to use that suffering as disqualification in the first place, especially for a self-help guru who literally built her platform on the pain and suffering that she has endured throughout her life to help people and rebuild herself. Why wouldn't we assume that this suffering would build her up into someone better and wiser? Because I bet you she would never do this again. I bet you she'll ignore in her gut when things feel wrong, because she probably felt like the man was wrong but assumed that, oh yeah, my trauma, yada yada yada. The truth is, if hardship, pain and suffering is enough to erase someone's credibility, then credibility wasn't ever the standard to begin with. At this point, the conversation says less about the Wizard Liz and more about how we process people like her, people that we put on a pedestal and create as symbols. Because what we're watching isn't really criticism, it's reinterpretation. A woman becomes successful and shares what helped her rebuild her life. People really connect with it, and the first sign of her experiencing pain, hardship, discomfort, the entire story gets written into reverse. It's not, oh, she's struggling, let's rally around her and support her and uplift her. She has uplifted us. It instead becomes, she was never real. She wasn't someone we should listen to. If she's in pain and she's still going through hardship, then I'm not protected from pain and hardship. If I take and follow her advice, I'm still going to suffer. So why not stay a loser? But that is, do you see that line of thinking? It's very interesting, isn't it? Because it exposes something that people don't even consciously realize that they think, which is silly, right? Hold on, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying this is silly. Like, think about it, right? People tend to assume that wisdom, the wise words of another person, is only valid if that person is never tested again or flies every test or surpasses and exceeds every test with flying colours. But that just isn't how life works. That's just not reality.
Killed that miserable old fool. How do you like the fish head? Miserable old fool. I poisoned his fish heads.
People don't become immune to pain because they understand it or have withstood it and have the skills and knowledge to dodge and reduce the amount of pain that they feel. And they don't stop being human beings because they learn something valuable from suffering. As I said before, if that's the standard, then nobody is qualified to speak about anything real. I'm telling you, this is another thing I've been thinking. If the Wizard Liz was a man, she would be so supported and elevated. She would have 15 self-help books, a talk show, and the masses would love her. Men would adore her. Women would flock to her. Like, she would be so supported. But when it comes from a woman, because misogyny, there is so much skepticism and so much, like, they're zoned in, waiting to see her take a step out of place just so they could say, see, I told you so. There's something wrong with the bitch. She ain't all that. I told you. Even though that's just human. But nobody is perfect. Why do people need her to fail in order to feel right about her? It's because once someone becomes a symbol of confidence, of self-worth, of change, people don't just admire them, they project onto them. There is a lot of comparison. They compare themselves to them. And sometimes they resent what that person represents. And that's why I made this video. I'm not the biggest Wizard Liz fan, but I'm 100% a support, because when I first saw her videos, it like opened my eyes and opened a whole door to really trying to figure out who I was and how to grow in confidence and just be normal and not feel so stressed all the time. When I first came across her content, I was insecure, deeply depressed, and I was broke. I was a broke pocket gal in both my mindset and in financially. And at the time, her message felt like a slap. It felt almost too sharp, like it was speaking to a version of myself, to a version of life that I felt like I couldn't access.
I do not care, but you don't just go settle and lower yourself and accept bad behavior because that's just how my environment is. Or you constantly let people walk all over you because this is how it goes in my culture. Bullshit! You have the power to change things in your life. You have the power to move and go for what you actually want, but you are the one deciding to settle. You should be so powerful. When you walk into a room, that room becomes more valuable because they have you in it.
And part of me dismissed it. It was so much easier to assume that she just didn't understand what my life was like. But over time, I stopped projecting my own frustration onto her words and actually listened to what she was saying. Not just the advice, but the conviction behind it. And from that perspective, what she offers feels like tough, genuine, real love. I'm just being honest. Obviously, it's not like she doesn't know us when she's speaking to us, but you tend to build a parasocial relationship when you're watching a YouTube video and someone is directly speaking to you and telling you with a force and fire that you need to change your life, because if she can do it, there is absolutely nothing stopping you doing it. You can be the better version, because she used to be just like that. She used to be down on herself. She used to feel small about herself. She used to make herself feel small. People used to bully her. She began to stand up straight, smile, talk. And you need to stand up straight and smile and talk too. And you will feel so much better. And it's like, bitch, hold on. You don't know me, bitch. How do you know that, bitch? You look pretty cushy and happy over there. Like, you're not... Who are you to tell me this? And then she begins, the more you watch, the more you learn little bits and tidbits about her life story and where she gets her advice from, and it starts to click. Oh my God, she was once in the same position that I was in. If she can do it, why can't I? For real, it sounds like tough something. Like nobody's real anymore. Like sometimes just because someone is telling you something about yourself that you need to change or develop or grow, or they're telling you something about yourself that you just don't want to hear, that will actually fucking help you. And you need to have discernment when it comes to this, because not everybody in your life who gives you advice actually wants to help you. Sometimes they want to push you in the direction that suits their benefit or suits whatever the fuck they got going on, bro. So you need to have discernment. But sometimes niggas is talking to you and they're talking from a place and a space of love, and they're telling you hard truths. And usually whatever hits your chest hard and makes you think, oh, is that true? Like, if someone's telling you, someone that you love or someone that usually is always on your side tells you, you might have fucked up. Maybe you fucked up. If you are constantly complaining about your life and the state of your life, and they say, hey, if you change this, if you're tired and you're always fucking tired and you're complaining every day, I'm so tired, but you know you're up until 6 o'clock in the fucking morning every night playing video games, drinking, I don't know, Monster energy drinks, sitting on your ass doing nothing. You're complaining every day about your skin, not eating greasy foods. And someone in your life tells you, hey, you need to slow down on the greasy foods, your skin's getting bad, you're getting big, and you go, then bitch, what the fuck? Like, that person's saying that out of love because they can't stand to see you getting or fucking yourself up, when they know you've got so much potential to be beautiful and be great. But instead you want to take that as that person is attacking me. There's an issue with them. Do you get it? And that's how people see the Wizard Liz, in my opinion. The way she delivers advice, people project superiority, but it's actually passion, not superiority, but someone who has been through tough and vicious cycles, who has seen the darker sides of life and is desperately and vehemently telling anyone who can listen, hey, I changed my life and stopped suffering in terrible, terrible ways. I stopped letting people walk all over me. I stopped letting people damage my mental health and my physical body. I changed, and you can too, and I really want you to, because a lot of our suffering we can outpace if we grow. Niggas don't want to hear her say that. Her message was never that life was easy. It was that change was possible, and for me that changed everything. When I watched a few more of her videos and stopped projecting that she was a bitch, it changed my life. Because it opened me up to new doors and new opportunities, and the belief that I could change was enough for me to start changing, bro. Without hearing that perspective, I may not be thinking the way that I do now. To be fair, the way I came across her video, I was looking for help, but a lot of the help was bullshit. It was fluff. She was giving us real raw shit that you could really actually work with. Like, real shit. She was giving real shit, and that's why she grew so quick. It's very difficult to see someone who has helped so many people be reduced to a punchline online simply for experiencing something human and something terrible. A man has taken her baby after pretending to love her, and we're talking about her brand and whether her advice is real or not, and how she's this and how she's that, and none of us know her. We do know that a man pretended to love her. Okay, maybe we don't know, allegedly, but we do know the facts are her baby, her firstborn child, is not with her. She's out of the country. No good man would allow that to happen, regardless as to what's happening between him and the mother or not. This is not right. Something's off. But instead, we're blaming her. Instead of looking at him and thinking, we're blaming her. Instead of rallying around and supporting her, we're blaming her and isolating her and saying, yeah, see, her pain. Nobody is exempt from character development, and the wizard Liz was never exempt from criticism. But the way people have responded to her and continue to respond to her says something so much more about how quickly people who are seen and perceived as symbols are reduced and destroyed and hated once they step out of line with what that symbol is supposed to represent. She was supposed to get married and have the dream, happy, cushy, cozy life and never suffer again, and that was it. So we could all follow her advice and yeah, like that's just real, like that's just reality. You know, what are we talking about? What are you talking about? She didn't abandon her philosophy when things went wrong. She went back, she refined, she corrected herself when she needed to. She was very honest. Her message stayed the same, and still people turned on her. There's no way in heck that we could be reacting to who she actually is and what happened within the situation. No, everyone is reacting to what she represented to them personally and as a collective. Untouchable. And so the moment she was harmed, everybody decided that she could no longer fulfill that role. But pain, suffering, and hardships are not exceptions to the human experience. They are simply a part of it. Without pain, how would you know joy? Without grief, how would you recognize love? And without the bitter cold, how could you ever appreciate the warmth of the sun? And that is what people forget when they turn other people they don't know into symbols. There is an expectation for them to represent something permanent in a world that is always changing. The Wizard Liz is not a symbol. She is a human being who shared her lived experience to try and help others online. Did she make every step perfectly? No, bro. She's just a person. She's just a person and not a terrible person. Oh, because apparently the guy was the cheater before she got pregnant, and the girl tried to tell her and she just ignored her. Because I would assume, me personally, if a girl came to me and she was the ex, I'd assume she was just a bitter, evil bitch trying to broke me and my man up, especially when my man ain't displayed no such behaviour. It's not every day and people were like, oh, she's a pick me. No. I think we treat all people the same. I would look at my man with suspicion from that day forward, as she probably did, and then thus she found out the cheating, you see. So it's very nuanced. Like, I would definitely be looking at him sideways, and I'd be asking a lot of questions about how him and his ex got together, what happened between them, and I'd be looking at her, but I'm not engaging with that, and I'm not taking that as something serious. But again, I'm not saying she's a perfect person. Some people can agree and to disagree. Some people think she's an evil bitch for doing that. I don't know, and I don't care. I don't think it's really, in light of everything that's happened, that's not a proportionate consequence of ignoring that. Do you get what I'm saying? That's not normal. That's not a normal thing to happen to somebody. Do you get? Nobody is exempt from pain, and increasing your self-worth, improving your life, choosing to love yourself and put yourself first doesn't remove you from suffering, hardship, or character development. Pain doesn't disappear when you grow, it just changes shape, and that's just the reality of life. Growth is not the absence of pain. Usually, if you allow the pain to drive you and fuel you as opposed to break you down and get inside your head, a lot of growth, creativity, wisdom, passion comes from pain. Some of the greatest love songs were written by heartbroken people. But thank you. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube video, and I hope you reconsider at least. Thank you so much. Please let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Please, like, don't be a bird. Don't be a bird brain. Like, actually, like, take in what I'm saying. Don't just and defend your opinion. Take in what I'm saying, because if you actually deep it, none of this makes sense. But I'll see you next week. Goodbye. Oh, shit.